Welcome, listeners. This is Thrice, a Sinister Siblings podcast where we watch a horror movie not once, not twice, but thrice! To see if the movie reveals anything new. Oh, take it, Mark.
Or whether it's just the same old stuff that you saw the first time round.
Whether it's enriched by repeat viewings or whether there's anything more to be revealed.
Let's face it, it's a brand new concept, which means either people have thought about it before and discarded it, or maybe you're listening to the cutting edge of horror reviewing. So we better introduce ourselves. I'm Mark, I'm one of the Sinister Siblings, and with me, of course, we have
his sister Tracy, who is also one of the Sinister Siblings, as well as...
Adam, sibling by marriage, not birth, Tracy's husband.
Good. All right. So in this podcast, we explore new horror releases that are fresh to the cinema. Every 3 to 4 films, though, we do like to try and delve into something that's gone straight to DVD, streaming, or just physical media, looking at it, as we've mentioned, through a different lens each time. So to kick us off for this very first episode, let's introduce the film that we're looking at in depth this time with a little synopsis of the film, Mark.
Yes, so we are looking at 2023's Baghead. So the official pitch for this one is a young woman inherits a rundown pub and discovers a dark secret within its basement. Baghead, a shape-shifting creature that will let you speak to lost loved ones, but not without consequence.
Okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So, what did everybody think of the trailer, and did it really set you up to for what was to come in the feature film itself?
I think, like all good trailers, it made it look better than it actually was, I think.
I was kind of pleasantly surprised with the film because the trailer didn't really inspire me. I sort of thought it was a little bit run-of-the-mill. I wasn't really expecting that much, so the film itself actually surprised me after watching the trailer, so it was pleasant.
I think at least it gave you what you thought you were going to get, which was a creature in a basement.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think it's quite entertaining that they went, what are we going to call a movie about a monster with a bag on its head? And someone went, well, let's put Baghead in place as a working title, and then it never changed.
No.
I think the title... The title's incredible. I think the title's probably the best point of this movie. It's like what did you see at the cinema? I saw Baghead, and people were like, "What?"
Yeah,
it's like it's a good title. It's a catchy title.
It sounds pretty like that's the title they used for the short film when they put it out. Whenever it was, about 5-6 years ago now. It's they obviously liked it. They stuck with it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess it does. Does what it says on the packet, or on the bag, as you might say.
Yeah. On the Hessian sack.
On the Hessian sack, yeah. So
did you actually like it, Trace?
I did enjoy it, yes. I'd have to say I did. Iris, within the film, she is the main protagonist. She's the girl who inherits this pub. I kind of thought... I had mixed feelings about her. I liked the way they set up her friendship with her friend Katie. I thought that was really good because Katie Katie comes along on the journey with us, so it was good to kind of have an understanding of where they'd come from and what they'd gone through together.
They were like homeless girls or something?
Yeah, they were in care together. So
at an orphanage or something.
Yeah, foster type situation. So it kind of explained a little bit why they supported each other, and also it gave, I guess, a bit of an understanding as to why you would stay in such a freaky, dingy, dark place and on your own as well.
Yeah.
So is Katie playing the role of the audience in this? Is she us sitting in the theatre going, why are you doing this?
Well, she's not me, because I would have given Iris a wake-up call. I would have been like, what the heck are you doing?
Well, she kind of gave her the wake-up call. She tried to say it.
Well, she tried, but she didn't actually. I would have been like, I'm out of here, mate. Like, this is not cool. Like, you're staying in this really dark pub that kind of has electricity in some areas and not in other areas, which I also found, classic horror trope. They're walking around with a torch. At least she had a torch. But then she's walking around with the torch and then she switches on the light. And I'm like, why did you not just switch on the lights the whole way?
Because movies.
Because movies.
That's not very scary.
No. So, yeah, definitely I was not Katie. I would have been like, dude, I'm out of here.
Well, I guess they did an all right job of setting up that she was like a mother hen to...
Yeah.
What was the main girl?
Iris.
Iris, yeah. That she, she'd already bought a ticket to come. Also, first of all, she leaves town to travel to Germany to go to this pub that she's inherited.
Is that where the pub was?
Yeah, it was in Germany.
Okay.
And so, friend back home, she rings up and says, I've already bought a ticket, I'm coming. So she's obviously, she goes, it sets it up that she's got a history of taking care of her, I guess.
Yeah. And when she paid for a ticket there as well.
Yeah.
But I guess what I also found a bit unusual about Iris, well, and I guess Katie to an extent as well, once I find out about Baghead downstairs, they quite readily accept this totally freaky ass woman that's downstairs. And, Iris in particular didn't really want to know anymore. Yeah. She was like, no, it's okay.
She was all good.
Yeah, this is cool. There's no electricity. I'm upstairs. And I think probably one of the good points that I did like about the film were this sort of sporadic ghosts of previous owners that sometimes popped up. I found that was kind of some of the scariest moments for me. I liked that. I kind of wanted more of that because, I didn't particularly find Baghead that frightening myself, but I can imagine sitting in this dark pub and suddenly there's this ghostly apparition. I was like, okay, that's cool. I like that. That's scary.
Now, I was actually just going back to the Berlin setting.
Yeah.
I've saw a couple of things online where people are like, why is it in Berlin and why is it called this and what? And it reminds me there's that old saying that sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. It's not in the movie for any other reason. And I actually found there was an interview on it's a website called Spotlight Report.
They're talking about cocks in that, right?
That's exactly right. And there's a lady, Sarah Ambrose, she was having a bit of a chat, and one of the things she talked about, she said the pub is very unique and a very cool setting. How important was the location for you? And the director said, we were coming out of COVID at the time, so this film was shot sort of late 2021. She goes, we're coming out of COVID at the time. It was very difficult to find crew, very difficult to find locations and so on. And the producers that they were working with already had a relationship with Studio Canal, and they were already making movies in Berlin. So we just made the decision to move the story to Berlin because basically they already had some connections there and they knew they could get it made.
Okay.
So Berlin had a real world reason for being in the film, and they just made the pub over there. So there was no deeper meaning behind did Germany have grief or any of that crazy. None of that crazy crap. That's just literally.
But that makes sense because it almost seemed like it didn't. It's not what I think of as Germanic anyway. It was kind of like a British pub or something. What was it called?
It was called the Queen's Head, I think.
But it's in Germany.
But they have expat pubs all over the joint, don't they?
I suppose that it was a British pub in Germany.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What I found...
Cool pub. Creepy pub.
It was cool and it was creepy and it was well stocked. And yet apparently it was not a viable business. Yeah. So that confused me a little bit in that it was so well stocked because throughout the film Iris is drowning of sorrows quite plentifully. But I also sort of found it a little bit odd that they never seemed to lock the door either. So,
how do you know?
How I know that, Adam? That's a great question. So, the guy who keeps coming back wanting to visit Baghead, Neil, who's wanting to visit Baghead and see his wife, he just keeps popping up.
That's right. He did just prop up like a bad penny.
Yeah,
he knew that guy was bad news. Did you know that guy was bad news?
What, Neil?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of had my suspicions. He was a little overeager, but it fascinated me. It just, I guess, from a female perspective as well.
So just to cut you in, have we talked about spoilers yet? Just to warn people.
I don't know.
I don't know if we did or not.
Full spoilers, people. We're going to be spoiling the hell out of absolutely everything we talked
about.
No stone will be left unturned. No bag unlifted.
No, exactly. You'll see and hear it all.
So jumping back to what you're saying.
Yeah, so it surprised me how Neil kept getting into the building repeatedly, obviously in a very easy manner, and the girls didn't want him there. Well, at least Katie didn't want him there. And I just found that odd because I thought from female perspective, you're in a strange country, you're in a really spooky pub, you've got a baghead downstairs, there's a guy who keeps wanting to get in, and you still don't lock the door. And I just thought that was just, to me, I was just like confused by that. But no real surprises that the male lead had multiple motives and allegiances because, he was doing his own thing.
So when you tie him in with the dodgy solicitor bloke who seemed to know what was going on as well...
Yeah, he did.
Would you say that Baghead is a folk horror film?
No, I think it would like to be. I don't think that whole thing about the origins of Baghead and being kind of risen by this cult, and it was like it didn't. Not everything needs to be fleshed out, but you can't just throw something in there and be like, "What do you mean? Who is this cult? What is this about this cult?" And the cult doesn't exist now. If they really wanted to go down that route, it should have been like a Rosemary's Baby kind of thing, where the guy at the real estate, now that I'm thinking about it, the guy in the real estate could be a part of that cult still.
Yeah.
Well, that was sort of the vibe I picked up, was that he knew what was happening and he seemed dead keen to get her to sign that document, and he was very particular that you have to sign it. And
yeah, he knew. He absolutely knew.
But was he part of the cult?
I think so. And then he
Or are we giving this movie too much credit?
No. I think he definitely was. He was part of the Baghead cult.
Because he disappeared as soon as she signed it. He was gone.
Well, they should have telegraphed things like that better for dummies like me. Like have like some kind of like signet ring or something.
No, well, I felt the same, Adam, actually, and I've made a note to discuss this because I sort of felt like, particularly like on rewatch, I'd be paying more attention to the Baghead origin story because
That's
I think
the sequel.
Maybe,
Probably.
who knows? Because I did feel, in terms of it being a folk horror, it did seem to want to be that way. I really appreciated how it kind of had that nod to witchcraft and to witches, and not kind of like, sort of like the charmed witches that we've had in, 90s and stuff, but actually back to sort of a darker witches, sort of elements like of the witch.
Yeah.
But, I don't feel that there were any hidden clues or deeper nuances that I missed. So you're right. I don't feel like there was any signet rings that I missed seeing or, secret stamps or stuff. But then, who knows? There might be more there.
Because Neil turned up with the deed at the end because he was trying to get Freya to sign... Oh, not Freya, sorry, that's the actress's name. Trying to get Iris to sign it. So where did he get the deed?
Well,
Yeah.
So was he part of this thing as well? Was he part of this Baghead cult?
That's actually one thing that I just quickly wanted to say. It was like, why the hell did this celestial ancient being, why is it bound by legal contracts of property ownership? It just seems so
magic
stupid.
contract. No, but like maybe magic contract. That could be...
Was a magic contract, right?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, she's bound to it. It's a magical contract. So it's,
Did they create the Baghead? Or was she a witch?
She was a witch. So she was a
Right.
witch, and that was part of, like, when they were basically torturing and killing the woman, she was like, all right, I'll fix your little red wagon. Watch this. And so she has. So I think, I think the fleshing out of her backstory was definitely needed. And one of my sort of favourite scenes in the film was when Katie... She does a bit of deduction because Iris just doesn't care. She's got a house. She's got
money.
She's got money in her pub. She doesn't really care what's going on or how she's achieving that. Whereas Katie's got a little bit more sense. And so she's sort of gone on a bit of a sort of investigative mission. She finds this creepy house. Love a creepy house, particularly in the woods. Gives me that sort of real shades of Blair Witch. Love that. Don't stand in the corner. And so... And there she sort of finds out a little bit more. And I also kind of liked... and I started... When I was thinking about this film and thinking about Baghead, I started thinking of her in terms of calling her Baggy. That was like her nickname. Little Baggy.
It was like Tucker Bag.
To her friends.
Baggy to her friends.
Tucker Bag.
It's good old Tucker Bag.
You got a Tucker Bag.
Showing your age, mate.
But yeah, I did like that scene out in the woods. But... Yeah, I kind of liked Baggy's heedless actions irrespective of the rules as well.
Well, I like that they've got rules. I mean, I know it's a horror movie thing to put rules in so we can break them later. Because, obviously, we see Dad on the video going, here's the rules of what you must follow. Never let her out of the basement, never go through the hole in the wall. Yet again, like you're saying, Adam, everyone's very much bound by rules and what you should be doing.
Yeah, bureaucracy turns out, legal contracts, and you can't possibly tell Baghead what to do. You haven't signed the contract.
And it's interesting
You don't
because
own the house.
it ties in very much, and the comparisons are going to come because they sort of were birthed at scenes roughly the same time. Because there's a lot of similarities with Talk to Me.
Yes. Yeah.
There's you've kind of got 2 minutes, or what was it 2 minutes or 90 seconds in Talk to Me? Something very similar time frame.
Yeah, it was very similar time frame.
You know, pretty much you can control the situation for this little bit of time, and then if you go any longer, shit's going to go sideways.
Yeah.
I believe the short for Baghead actually did come out before Talk to Me. So from that timeline, Baghead probably is in front. But if you were looking at those two films, Adam, which one do you think does the messages from the other side better?
Well, it's interesting because, yeah, you're right. They both kind of have like a vessel to communicate with the dead for a bite-sized amount of time, but they like come at them like from very different angles. I feel like this movie kind of had an opportunity to say something about grief and the importance of letting go, or like the dangers of not letting go, but it didn't really hit home. It was kind of trying to go for a serious tone. What I liked about Talk to Me, or the thing I liked the most about Talk to Me, was this, to flip this thing as like this kind of micro-exorcism thing, as like kids doing like nangs or like whippets as they call them, like a drug thing, sort of peer pressure, hanging out at the party, it's like a very different
they
kind
got
of
high from it.
approach,
Yeah.
And I also think Talk to Me benefits from, you don't really know any origins from this hand. It's got like crazy like stuff written all over it, and you know it's got some kind of ancient thing going on, or you assume it's got some kind of worn-in history, but not knowing kind of makes it better.
Yeah.
I did like the idea of this ancient witch that had been kind of entombed in the wall by these people, but yeah.
But yeah, I think in terms of its similarity to Talk to Me, or lack of similarity, in Talk to Me there was a real sort of threat of menace and actual violence if they overstayed their welcome. Whereas in Baghead, she was like basically a little bit of a bitch.
She just comes to talk trash to them. But so is that? I felt like after the 2 minutes, it was kind of. It was still them. It was like the real them, like the drunk dead person telling them, or just playing the person's anxieties. I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of it was. She said many things, but also what I found was interesting was it was like water off a duck's back, really, to these people receiving this news, even though it was nasty.
Yeah.
It never actually made them lose it or go crazy. So I'm like, well, why bother even saying all this nasty stuff? Because they don't really care that much.
No.
And I mean, I guess she did give the info that sort of pushed the story along in a lot of terms. Like we found out a lot about Neil. And I guess about Iris's dad as well, when she was able to speak to him. But yeah, I kind of thought it didn't really have much menace. It's like, oh, if I stay longer than 2 minutes, they're going to be nasty to me. It's not really,
Yeah, there wasn't much. There wasn't. Yeah, you're right. There wasn't much stakes in overstaying your 2 minutes.
No, she's just going to talk trash.
Yeah. Until she gets told to go get back in behind the wall. So
yeah, it was just. I mean, I guess your quality communication ceases. But yeah, it wasn't. It didn't really feel like it had high stakes.
I mean, look, the grief element is interesting. And you think there's been some other horror films like Hereditary and Babadook and Midsummer and such that do grief as well. That's kind of their theme. Because you do look at it like it's not by accident, I guess, that, they play that Iris has an estranged dad and doesn't really have any family of her own. And there's some real grief about different ways that relationship's working.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting element to it. And that's... Because it is that thing, as Adam was saying, I guess, people letting go, or should you not be? And it sort of ties in, because I guess the tagline for the film, what do they say? It's talk to the dead, pay the price.
Yeah.
And I guess that price is a bit ambiguous around, is it just the dollars that you're forking out, or is it that effect? Like Neil obviously wanting to find out his wife's intention on leaving him was, was she cheating on him? What was happening? And,
Yeah.
What
his
was
motivation ended up being so petty, but like... Yeah.
Well, his motivation was he killed her. He set it all up, like not intentionally, but it's Neil's fault that she died.
Oh yeah. Why would he want to bring that up?
Well, because he was so egotistical, I guess he figured there was no way she would have just left him because she was scared of him. She must have been leaving for someone else. So who was that other person? Sort of thing.
Right. Yeah.
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 So, would you do it then, Adam? If you had the opportunity to talk to Baghead for 2 minutes, would you do it?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I suppose you would if I if I knew that there was rules and like the owner of the house can put him back in the wall and all of that. I suppose.
Well, who would you talk to?
Well, that's the thing. No, at the moment, no one. You know, maybe Dad, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
Really?
No.
There you go. I think I'd be. You kind of. Like Adam said, if there's rules.
No, but I sort of think, I mean, for me, it's sort of two-pronged. I think the people that have passed over that were, you know, that I loved, I don't have anything left unsaid with those people, I don't think. I feel comfortable with that. I mean, not that you wouldn't want to be able to, like, shoot the breeze, but I don't think I want to be in a dark, dank basement with a baghead, like an ancient witch who's just waiting to scratch your eyes out.
Yeah.
I think, you know what? No, I'll pass. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm all good. What about you, Mark?
I would. I think I would. I think it would be a very interesting thing. Even just, you know, for a checkup, you know, like we haven't seen our parents for some time, you know, it'd be interesting to see what they think of the life that we lead and whether they enjoy the podcast.
Yeah. I just don't know if, you know, I don't think also when you're dealing with supernatural, paranormal things, I don't think you can have 100% trust. So I don't think I would 100% trust that person or entity purporting to be one of my parents was actually one of my parents. I think you've always got to have a, you know.
A healthy skepticism
Yes.
of like creepy sort of rancid, mouldy witches in the basement. Be aware.
Exactly.
Be wary. Yeah, certain healthy skepticism is probably.
Yeah, exactly. Read the room and sort of go.
But I think the book, like, so it says, and I don't know if you read it or looked into it, but in the credits I did catch that it's, based on a short story. And I suspect it probably lends itself quite well to a short story, and I wouldn't be surprised if the short story has more of that undertone of not being able to let loved ones go. I would hope, because there is a good idea there. I like horror that sort of leans into heavier themes like that, but I feel like this movie kind of probably wanted to do that but didn't quite manage it. Yeah.
So talking about the short, so the actual short film was directed by the same guy.
Short film or short story?
It was a short story that became a short film.
Right, yeah, okay.
And so the director did that as well. And in the short, the lead was a male.
Oh.
So I was interested to know what you guys thought about that. That, you know, with a question without notice, I haven't looked into why they changed the gender of the lead.
No,
I guess fleshing out the story, I think in the short, I think it was pretty much, and hopefully we'll see that they'll give us a Blu-ray release that'll have the short on it.
Yeah,
what I'm hoping.
Good.
But so the short obviously had a male. I think it was just basically just going and talking to Baghead was basically what the short was, about 15 minutes.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
But what do you think about having a male in that lead role rather than a female?
Well, and the rest of the story remained the same, so Neil was still there, and
I'm not sure of the surrounding parts. I think it was just centred mainly on the main character talking to Baghead.
Yeah, because I think in a longer form, if you're involving someone like Neil, involving like a female friendship, I guess, a close female supportive friendship, and then you've also got Neil and you've got, you know, a mother-daughter dynamic as well, I can see how that's perhaps why you've changed the sex of the main character, because, you know, like, I think there was always an element there of Iris could get together with Neil. Like, there was a potential there because his wife's dead. She's needing some money.
He's clearly got money.
He's clearly got money.
Are you saying she bore herself? Is that what's happening here?
No. I'm just sort of, you know, she was a strategic operator.
Oh,
so,
really?
You know, I'm sort of, but, you know, there's always in films, you know, you've got like, you know, male and a female. Like, there's potential there. Not to say there isn't potential between a male and a male. Mm-hmm. But I sort of think maybe that's why they might have changed it to a female. But I think if you were looking at the short, I mean, we haven't seen the short film, so it's hard to say.
I think it inherently makes the character, this is controversial, I guess. I think it inherently makes the character more vulnerable to make them female.
Well, yeah, I would say that too.
It makes a totally different slant on it to have, like you're saying, Neil, this random guy coming into the house.
Yeah, and hanging out in this haunted pub by yourself in the dark.
Yeah.
As a young girl rather than a, you know, bloke.
Yeah.
But, not to say, I'm sure Iris could handle herself. But, yeah, she'd been, she'd had a tough life. Interesting segue there.
A couple of backstage things that I thought were interesting. So it's actually the director's first feature, and it was Freya Allen, that's her first lead. She's been in shows like The Witcher, but it's her first lead. So I was interested to see, so they actually had a really experienced editor involved, which is a fellow called Jeff Betancourt. And he's done horror films like The Exorcism of Emily Rose, the last few Grudge films, The Ruins, The Unborn, The Apparition, the Poltergeist remake. So he's been around for quite some time. So I thought that was pretty clever if you've got sort of some first-time talent to have someone really experienced, especially in that editing space, because I think the editing looked pretty good. And the other element too, before we sort of talk more about the production element of it, I suppose, is it's got some connections to the film that came out recently for Night Swim. I know I've seen it. I'm not sure you guys have seen it or not.
Nope.
So that was also a short film that was extended into a feature, and actually writers involved with Night Swim were also involved with Baghead.
Okay.
So they sort of got together there a little bit about expanding some short films into some features.
Yes.
Shared universe, perhaps?
Maybe. But it's interesting because there's also some grief elements in Night Swim, because there's, about the dad in that who, lost his athletics career and desperately wants it back and being unable to let go of that, which sort of drives the main part of that story.
Yeah.
But what did you think about the film visually there, Adam? Like, the colour palette being very washed out in the basement, sort of.
Yeah. I think that's probably, if it wasn't for the production value, and I probably would have liked this movie less. It felt very cold. I felt like you could feel the coldness of that pub. It was gloomy.
Yeah.
Super gloomy.
Yeah.
You could smell the damp in the basement.
Yeah.
And I liked the I like the Baghead, this kind of sack witch thing in the basement. It's cool. Yeah. And good looking pub, good sets. Yeah, it was that whole pub and the hallways with all the old paintings and stuff. And it was a good set.
Yeah. Well, I did read that the filmmaker is a big fan of Guillermo del Toro.
Right.
So
it was pretty gothic. Yeah.
So did you see some of those influences, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was. It was very atmospheric and sort of had the richness to it as well. Like when you were in that corridor and all of those pictures and paintings on the wall, and I think it did give a sort of like another world kind of element to it, where you could see going down into the basement. You were going through into
well, it felt lived in and ancient, with a history of tenants.
Yeah, but I think it was a very darkly lit film. I was really glad that I was watching it in the cinema.
Yeah.
Because I think,
That's true.
if you're watching it at home, which we will be doing in the second part of this podcast, I think you're definitely going to have, just out of a physical necessity, you're going to have the lights off, blinds down, in order to be actually able to ascertain what's going on in a lot of the film, just because it is so dark.
Yeah, pretty black.
Yeah, but...
You can hide a lot in black too. But yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, that can often be a useful tool when you're making film and perhaps don't have, the resources or the budget. Using darkness can actually be really, really effective. But in terms of a fear factor, I guess, Mark, were you scared by this film? Did this film keep you up at night? Did it keep you up at night?
No, not going to be something to keep me up at night. I think the less is more approach they took was good. It's quite clever having the bag in as much that you didn't need to do these elaborate transformation things. You just had, there's a witch into the bag and then you lift the bag off and it's your ex-wife. It was...
I liked that.
So that was clever without having to stretch their budget. Was there any particular moments I thought were super spooky? Nothing stands out that you'd put in sort of a best of reel, I don't think. It certainly had a good atmosphere to it and it had that British feel to it.
Yeah, that kind of elevated it. Just the fact that they weren't American made it seem a little bit classier.
Okay.
And that's not a slight on Americans. It's just we see so much American cinema or Hollywood horror movies, I guess. And this was a Hollywood movie too, I guess, wasn't it? It wasn't a British production.
Yeah, it was UK.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, UK people. I don't know.
Yeah.
They just seem
Got
classier.
the atmosphere. The atmosphere going on. Yeah, I didn't find it particularly scary. There were a few good jump scares in it. And I did like at one point, where she sort of looked up and there was like the ghost of a past proprietor, and I was like, oh, okay, that gave me a little bit of a fright. But the actual Baghead did not frighten me whatsoever. I'm much more a fan of atmosphere and sort of like, suspense rather than here's a lady with a bag on her head.
Well, let's go pure shock though. And this is a big spoiler for everybody. When Iris meets her end, did you expect that, or were you genuinely like, what is now happening?
I kind of expected it.
Really?
Probably in the last little part. Like I knew Katie was going to get the chop. Sorry for the spoiler. That was just apparent. The amount of times that they went up and down into that basement with just no concern, no care. I just thought, I wasn't surprised. And then I kind of, because I started to think, well, where is this going? Like, where are we taking this? And, so I wasn't surprised.
Well, I was pretty shocked. So I quite enjoyed the twist in the end. It wasn't something I necessarily expected. What did you think of that twist, Adam?
For her to get pushed off the building and die.
No, the bit where he then thought he'd be trying clever and bring her back as Baghead to get her to sign the deed, and then discovered he'd made Baghead's own owner.
Yeah. I thought it was a clever idea, like to. What did I think of the twist? So basically, the main character being pushed off the roof, killed, and then resurrected through Baghead so that she may sign the contract.
Yes,
and pass the ownership over to Neil.
Yes, Neil outsmarting himself by discovering he'd given Baghead the power to.
Thought he was so big. Thought he was so clever. Well, he was clever. I thought, that's a good workaround to get ownership.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out for him. Which I didn't actually like, because all of a sudden it was like, now it was like Baghead is like, you've made me my own owner, I'm free. When really, maybe it was just so implicit, but I didn't feel that Baghead had sentience or wanted to be set free.
She wanted to be set free this whole time.
How do you know that?
Well, I guess that was in the rules, never go through the hole in the wall because then you lose control.
She was, I guess it's just implied she's imprisoned, basically.
Yes.
And I guess that was one of the rules, like Dad sort of said from the beginning, you can't let her out of the basement.
Yeah. Because she'll, But what's going to happen now? Is that going to be the second one? She's going to, rule the earth?
Well, that's the other way to go with it. What happens now Baghead gets out? There's no one really to stop her. So
will the sequel be what Baghead's doing now? Or will it be a throwback
That's
to...
catchy, what Baghead's doing now.
Rebagging, bag it twice, double bagged. What will it be? That'll be the name of it. Or will it be going back to the origins of
bagging.
the origins of Baghead?
Oh,
the origin's good too. How did she get there into the basement of a pub is also...
Yeah.
So there's lots of ways you could go with it, which I'm sure was not accidental.
Yeah.
The double bagging does seem to be like a good idea.
Yeah, you should always double bag, safety first.
Well, indeed. So on rewatch, what will you be looking for then? On rewatching this, not double bagged, but on rewatching the first Baghead.
I will be looking for evidence that I missed of this cult still existing, mainly like the real estate guy being a part of this ancient cult that seemed glossed over to me, but maybe I just had that wrong. So I'll be looking for that.
Yeah. I think I'll be looking more at the themes of the grief and the loss. I think when I watched this film, I was not entirely surface level, but I think I was just sort of taking it as it came and just sort of interacting with the elements as they were presented on screen. So I wasn't really looking for the deeper meanings. So I think I'll probably look deeper into that sort of themes of grief and loss in the second go, because in this second watch, so we'll watch this as soon as it comes out onto streaming, and then we'll get back together and discuss how we've sort of seen it through that second lens. So what will you be looking for, Mark?
Probably a little bit of both of what you guys are talking about, but also I'm curious because the official, I suppose, marketing for the film doesn't talk about Baghead as being a witch.
No.
And I'll actually be listening out to see whether they actually refer to her being a witch in the movie. Like, I know in interviews and things that I've read, the director quite openly talks about her as a witch, but I'm not sure if that word actually gets said. So I'd be interested to see how she's described. But yeah, I think that origin feels like a blank spot in my memory at the moment. I don't feel like I could tell people clearly how she ended up there and why she's there, and how she's ended up being sort of a sideshow attraction.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. People know about her. This guy knows about her. Like, did it go into that? How he knew about it?
Not really. That's where the folk horror thing sort of comes. That the town seems to know that there's this dirty secret that outsiders don't know about.
Yeah.
Well, round table. How out of 10? How many bags are you going to give this? And then we can come back to it next time. See how many bags you can give it after repeat views.
Oh, so on first watch, how many bags? How many bags out of 10 bags?
Yeah.
I think possibly around maybe 7 bags. Like, it definitely is a well put together film. I think it does definitely, we have a lovely sort of story arc. We've got character arcs in there as well. And I think also, one thing that I didn't mention earlier was I did find there were elements for me almost of like The Shining and the Amityville Horror, but like becoming one with a haunted place and becoming its protector, and sort of then using it for your own ends as well. So I think 7 bags for me.
Okay. Well, my bag scale for today would be, I usually work on the idea that 5 would be a pass, and then anything above 5 starts moving into that world of would I encourage other people to watch a film. And from that side of things, I think I'd probably give 6 bags. I think I'd be inclined I think there's enough substance there to work with. And one thing just going back to what we'd be looking for, I have read that the director's a big fan of the J-horror, the Japanese horror stuff too. So I'm interested to see what he may have worked in from that side of things. We talked about the Del Toro stuff, but when you sort of think about Samara from The Ring or some of the creatures from The Grudge or The Eye and stuff like that, you go, I'm interested to see Baghead and how Baghead moves and such, whether there is any of that Asian cinema influence perhaps.
Well, I think in the feel of the dark and the damp, because it does give off that sort of damp, dank kind of feel to the whole film. So that kind of definitely gives me vibes from that.
Yeah, so I think at the moment it's 6 bags for me.
And that,
I'd probably give it 6 bags as well. It wasn't scary, and it wasn't scary, and I wasn't even necessarily really entertained. But I've got a soft spot. I've got a soft spot for like ancient witches. I like the imagery of the sack witch. I like the pub.
yeah.
Creepy old pub. The Britishness of it. It felt like really cold and moody and kind of gothic. I'll give it, sort of 6 bags just for that stuff.
Yes. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's, I really do long for a film where I actually get scared. I don't know if that's like a double-edged sword, but, we all watch lots and lots of horror films, and very rarely do you actually come across something, I think, that actually sort of chills your bones. And,
Right. Yeah. We'll see. Well, obviously, we will see throughout going through this podcast. But I don't actually like being scared.
You picked the wrong job.
Yeah.
So I'll be the coward of the podcast, I guess. Yeah.
All right, well, where to from now? For you guys, it'll just be a momentary commercial break, so to speak. But for us, it'll be a little while because we've got to wait for Baghead now to come onto streaming or onto Blu-ray. So we will catch up with you guys in a few moments in your time once we've had a chance to sit through Baghead again. Thanks very much, everybody. Say goodbye to the nice people.
Bye, nice people.
Taxi bye.